All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our capacity building webinar for our RFQ for building a capacity building team. We have a couple of people on the phone, a couple of people on Skype, and so we are also recording this, so this will be available after we're done. It'll be posted on our blog. So this is how to ask a question about our webinar. You can either, if you're on the phone, when it comes to the question and answer time, you'll have to unmute yourself, and we'll unmute all the participants, and you can either speak your question or you can, if you're on Skype and you can see us, you can type your question in the chat box to the left-hand side. We're still getting people joining us, so we are going to maybe wait a minute because people keep popping in. But we're happy you're here. Okay, we'll get started. Again, it will be recorded. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Megan McJennett. I'm the 5 to 24 Policy and Program Manager at Best Starts for Kids.
And I'm Victoria Lynn. I'm the Prenatal to 5 Policy and Program Manager for Best Starts for Kids.
And we are managing the capacity building RFQ and the capacity building work going forward. This is our agenda for the webinar. We're going to do a really brief overview of Best Starts for Kids. You all probably know all about it. We'll talk about what our definitions of capacity building is, how the capacity building team fits into the Best Starts for Kids work as a whole, and what we're looking for in this RFQ, going over the criteria, and then we're here to answer your questions. You can ask us questions. We have some questions we've received already, which we will answer, and then you can ask us questions live as well. Who's on the phone? I don't know how I think we'll do that later. Yeah, okay. Oops.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do this really, really quickly. As Megan said, you probably already all know this, but we just want to give a quick overview of what Best Starts is. As you know, our vision is to have happy, healthy, safe, and thriving children. We want to see babies born healthy, kids thrive, and young people grow up to be happy and healthy adults, just spanning the entire cycle from starting prenatally and going all the way into early adulthood. So how do we do it? Our approach is to really support promotion. We want to see increase the good things that children need and families need to thrive, and decrease the bad things. So we're looking at promoting all the positive factors in society, community support, home visiting, all sorts of mentoring, all sorts of aspects that help support the well-being of children and families. And we're also looking at doing prevention and early intervention. So in case things go wrong or if families encounter any challenges, that they can be supported quickly and be put back on the path that they want to be on. And then policy and systems change, looking to see where it is that we can change the way our systems are set up so that we can, so that they're more supportive of all sorts of families and children. Best Start's underlying principle, we lead with equity. We believe really strongly in targeted universalism and leading with racial equity, recognizing all the disparities and disproportionality that are prevalent in our country and in King County itself, and how we want to support making sure that different communities get the resources that they need. Community, again, we want to really center the voices of communities rather than have us be top down and say, this is what, these are the programs we're going to offer and this is what you're going to apply for funding for. We in fact went out to communities, gathered input about what they wanted Best Starts to see, and we have throughout the entire process of putting out funding, try to be as accessible as possible to community members so that they could have all the information they needed to know about Best Starts for Kids. The third one, we recognize that families and children are resilient, and that and we want to support the protective factors that promote family and children's and young people's well-being. And starting with social emotional well-being is the foundation of it all. That if a child or a young person has a strong foundation in their social emotional health, that they are able to do all the other things they need to succeed. We also take a multi-generational approach. We recognize that children and young people don't exist in a vacuum, and that they often have family, including grandparents and aunts and uncles, and who are all part of the village that will help support them. And finally, transparency and accountability, that's coming from our end. We really believe strongly in making sure that we are completely available to community members when they have questions, when they have comments, when they have suggestions for improvement, and we want to be accountable first and foremost to our communities. So Best Starts structure. Really quickly, 50% of Best Starts funding goes to the prenatal to 5 strategies.
I'm attacked by a calendar. Sorry. That was just a little comedic action. They go to the prenatal. They go to prenatal to 5 strategies. 35% of them go to the 5 to 24 strategies. And we have about 5% set aside for data and evaluation, so that we have a specific data and evaluation team that works with all the awardees to help them track their progress, and then tie the programs that they do to the outcomes that we want to see in communities. And finally, 10% of our funding goes to Communities of Opportunity, which is a partnership between King County and the Seattle Foundation, and they do specific place-based initiatives. Oh, and the most important part for this purposes of this RFQ, 1% of the prenatal funds and also the 5 to 24 funds are set aside to provide technical assistance and capacity building. So we had a bucket of money for those 2 purposes, and as many of you have participated in it, we participated in providing technical assistance for the potential applicants for Best Starts funding. So some of that money has already been spent on technical assistance, and then the remainder is going to be allotted toward the capacity building for awardees. So quick levy details. It was passed by voters in November 2015, and it will yield about $65 million annually. And this levy will run for 6 years and end in December 2021. And finally, we wanted to just really close. We always want to close our summary about Best Starts for Kids with our Children and Youth Advisory Board's equity statement. It starts with this sentence that equity is an ardent journey toward well-being as defined by the affected. And one way we want to make sure that the affected are participate in this process of determining who the capacity builders should be for their particular for this particular team that we're building, for the review panel who will be reviewing the applications of all the capacity builders. We are inviting our awardees to participate in the review panel so that they get to look at the applications and provide input on whom they think should be recommended for funding. Great. So now we get into the heart of the matter, the capacity building. And so we Best Starts realized that funding programs isn't enough. We wanted to get a lot of money out to the community through this levy. It's been very exciting. We're funding things that have never been funded before, in areas that have never been funded for, in a very comprehensive approach. We also realize that we're funding organizations that have never received public money before, and that we are thrusting them into this world of contracting with a public entity, and that provides new learning opportunities. And we want to make sure that the community organizations, the CBOs that we fund, are strong and sustainable going on in the future beyond when Best Starts finishes. So that is why that 1% was set aside in the implementation plan to provide not only access to technical assistance so people can apply for the funding, but also to be able to support the major pillars of healthy nonprofit work going forward, so that these organizations can continue and thrive and be successful with the programs. So these are our basic definitions. This is pulled right from the RFQ, so you've probably already read it, I hope. And so this is our definition of capacity building and capacity building supports. And what we're really trying to do, after talking to a lot of key informant folks and also some of the organizations themselves, of what they would like and how best to go about doing this in an attempt to be a fair and equitable way, realizing that different organizations, we have funded over 450 organizations, and they run the gamut from very small community-based organizations to the names that we all know and love. So the need for capacity building varies widely, and the type of capacity building varies widely. So we're looking to put together a team and of outside King County consultants, and who bring a wealth of knowledge in very specific areas that's outlined in the RFQ, everywhere from board development to equity and social justice focus, everything under the sun that is necessary for strong nonprofits. The funding specifics, we have about $2 million a year for the life of the levy, so that goes to 2021. Contracts will be a one-year contracts, and with the option for extending. As many of you know, we do have expenditure restrictions on the levy funding, and we can't technically contract for more than 3 years, but we decided for this one we would do 1 year because we imagine that this will evolve. The work will evolve as the years evolve, and we know more about what folks need and how they want it, how they want to receive the support. And the contracts will be tailored to the work of the individual. Sorry, typo on that one, but individual work of the consultant. So if you, for example, only want to provide workshops, you'll be funded to provide workshops. If you want to do one-on-one coaching, you'll be funded to do one-on-one coaching. So we're not sure what the contracts are going to look like now. It depends how we put things together. Wow, that's very small, but this is the timeline for the RFP. It was opened in November 27th. You're on the webinar right now on December 12th. And then the final day for questions via Zoom grants will be January 3rd, and the application date is January 7th. Via Zoom grants, and it's midnight on the 7th. We may set up interviews afterwards as part of the review. That depends on how many applications we get, whether there are any burning questions. We are putting together a review panel, as Victoria mentioned. It will have be made up of community members and county staff, program managers, who will be really working closely with this team. And we're looking to put together a well-rounded team in terms of expertise and language accessibility and things like that. Do you want me to keep going?
Sure, I can cover the rating criteria. So you've already probably all seen this, but what we really want to know from you when you apply and fill in your application is to share what experience you've had providing capacity building. Be as extensive as possible. Don't assume that we already know what you think we know, because we know you. We'll have reviewers who might have never heard your name before, so just lay it all out. We also really want to hear about your experience working collaborative with community-based organizations and how your approach is for partnering with them. We want to make sure that the values are compatible that we have, that the capacity builders work in partnership and in support of community-based organizations. And then your ability to meet organizations' needs. It'll be really helpful for us to weave together a team by knowing what potential geographic limitations you might have, or what linguistic capacities your team has. And then finally, any experience in implementing a needs assessment. One thing that we realized that given the number of awardees we have, the needs are going to be really, really diverse, and we want to make sure that we can capture the needs that awardees have, and also a sense of what their time availability is and how we can best support them with the limited time that they often are operating under.
All right, so we have already received several questions, and we're going to read those questions out. We're also going to maintain an FAQ on the Zoom Grants website. We'll just be uploading it to the library there, and we'll try to do that weekly. But these written answers to these questions will also be posted, and then if we collect questions between now and January 3rd, those will also be sort of posted weekly, so you can go. It'll be a running list of questions, and you can go into the library and read our written answers to those questions. And then once we go through these 4 questions, we will open up for your questions, either, as I said, by Skype or over the phone. So the first question is, it looks like the county will be putting together a menu of capacity building experts across a wide range, and deployment of specific capacity building is handled centrally, ? Or is it better for bidders to put together a consortium approach that can meet any of the different types of expertise needed? Or is the coordination happening at the county end, or something in between? So this is a multi-part question. We don't necessarily have a preference on how people apply. So you could apply just for yourself. You can get together with a group of 4 or 5 people. You could get together, or maybe you have a consulting firm that already does many of these different things, and you'll be applying as an organization. We imagine we're going to get very many different applications. So that's not really a preference. We are putting together a team. It may be a team of individuals. It may be a combination of individuals or organizations. But our goal is to put together a team that can support the basic pillars of healthy organizations. And so that may come from one application. It may come from 6. We don't know. We're looking forward to your creative response on how to approach this system of capacity building. Do you want me to do the next one, or do you want to?
I'm happy to do it. We'll take turns. So the second question that we got was, how will the work be done in terms of connecting capacity builders to CBOs? Is it matchmaking going to be done centrally, and how will the TA or is it going to be how the TA is provided, where the organization directly contacts the capacity builders? And right now we're envisioning that the program managers play a really, really central role in knowing their CBOs and knowing that the needs that their CBOs have. So they would be actually a really important third party in all of this, and connecting you, the capacity builder, with CBOs that need support. But I think in terms of big picture, we recognize that the needs assessment will probably help us really identify what organizations need what, and then from there we'll devise a strategy where we'll figure out how to best reach all the different CBOs and their individual needs. And we might open up different, maybe we'll take a no wrong door approach, or maybe we'll decide that, the program managers are the best way to connect, but that will be something that will be decided later on as a team.
You ask about needs assessments. Do you envision different providers using different tools or the same tool? And whose tool? And while we were putting together this strategy, this came up frequently because there are so many different kinds of needs assessment tools out there. We will be looking for one central tool. We haven't decided what that tool is going to be. I think that will be part of the teamwork that we're going to be doing, the co-creation that we're going to be doing with this team that we put together. To agree on that tool and how that tool is presented, and how we best work with community-based organizations who have many different needs and many different the varied levels of capacity for capacity building, right? We know that small organizations are many times trying to do it all with very few staff, and they might not have a whole lot of time to fill out a 500-question needs assessment. So how do we get that done in an efficient way that's also effective for highlighting where the capacity holes are?
And finally, the fourth question, the assessment and strategy part of the work done in partnership with King County seems critical. How are you thinking about that? For example, would this be with multiple providers? Is there one lead? How is the assessment assigned across the zillions of BSK CBOs that you have? So right now, when we have our team together, we will work to put together a sort of workflow and assignment of different different bodies of work, and we're going to focus on connecting different capacity builders with the right skills and the language match and the availability to the right CBOs to get the information from the needs assessment. And again, we feel that program managers will play a really important role in helping identify which organizations have the greatest needs, which of their awardees have the greatest needs, and how to reach out and make sure that we connect with them.
Great. So now we've already started getting some questions in on Skype, so we'll start answering those. One of the first questions is, what is the content area of focus for capacity building? And that's mainly what's in the application, the check boxes, social justice and racial equity, legal, that's like how to help organizations become a 501c3 if they're not already, or HR manuals or things like that, and then human resources, board development, organizational development that includes like leadership development, coaching, strategic planning, things like that, finance, IT, marketing, communications, and branding, and the other, whoever, if you have other expertise that you could bring. Again, it's really focusing on building the pillars of strong nonprofits. You want me to talk about the mini grants?
Sure.
So the mini grants, somebody asked to talk about the mini grants. The mini grants is sort of the third leg of this stool. The first leg is some of the capacity building that's already happening within strategies. Those are learning circles and some of the capacity building that program managers are providing on a case-by-case basis with their contractors. And then this capacity building team doing all that kind of work. And then the mini grants, we're envisioning will start late in 2019, so Q4 of 2019. And that'll be sort of after a lot of the initial capacity building has come in. But for example, say an organization is working hard to provide their, they've learned that, what they have for an HR manual is not sufficient, and they've gotten coaching on all the different parts, but they just don't have the capacity to actually write an HR manual. So they could apply for a mini grant, which would be under $10,000, to hire an expert in writing HR manuals, to have the HR manual written. So that's sort of, once the needs are identified, and if they can't be, satisfied with a workshop or a clinic, or even one-on-one coaching, that they really need an expertise, or they really need somebody to set up a financial system for them, they can apply for money for that, and then they can go and find the organization that they want to work with that mini grant.
Another question we have is, are you expecting the team to include all the expertise needed, or maybe will be do contracts with particulars such as legal and or HR? I'm not sure we can answer that question, because we have to see who applies. Ideally, we'd like to have the team to possess all the expertise needed, and I think as a team, it also will be better, because we'll be able to make sure that everybody who is on the team is living up to BSK values, and that there's a lot of alignment in the work. But we'll have to see who applies.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think we want a team that we can check all the boxes. Like, one person knows legal, and one person knows HR, one person knows graphic design and branding, or so that's our goal and our hope. We'll see what happens. I'm going to unmute folks. I realize that I forgot to do that, so that if anybody wants to, anybody on the phone, and you have to, just remind you have to unmute yourself, or else we won't be able to hear you, and we'll just keep talking. Somebody else asked, if an org receives a capacity building grant, does this preclude them from applying for a mini grant as well? Layla, I hope I'm understanding you correctly. If not, please clarify. But if you're part of the capacity building team, I don't think that you would also be eligible for a mini grant. But if an organization receives capacity building support through this team that we're putting together, they are obviously they are very welcome to apply for a mini grant as well. And we didn't say at the beginning of this that the capacity building will be open to any BSK funded organization that's through COO or any of the other strategies. Okay, good. Someone on the phone.
This is Karen Hirsch from the Ostara Group.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Did you have a question for us?
I do. Our core question was, in the as you're looking for partners in this venture, are you interested in groups putting together a team and coming in as a team of more than one partner, or do you want firms like ours to just share what we feel like we could bring to the table, and you will do the partnering of putting different skill sets together? Is that a clear enough way of putting that question?
Yeah, I think, it could be either. I think, okay. I imagine, and, we're building this, but I imagine that we'll have a team of various different people who are bringing a varied skill set to the table. So that could be an organization that brings 3 or 4 skills to the table. It could be an individual who's just really good at this one thing. So I think it'll vary.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. if you have a team in mind already, or you know people you want to pull together, please do so. If you do it on your end, it's actually helpful to us because we get a really good picture of who brings what to the table.
Great.
Monica has a question, and I just wanted to clarify because you said non-COOs need not apply. Could you clarify that? Do you mean, are you referring to communities of opportunity? Correct. So you're saying that if an organization is not a COO awardee, I'm sorry.
I think, not BSK funded.
Oh.
Right. BSK funded, non-BSK funded organizations cannot apply for the actual, not to this RFQ, but to the actual capacity building that the folks who are funded through this RFQ will be providing. So we're putting this team together. We're putting this myriad of capacity building opportunities out there for people to use. It'll be available for BSK awardees and COO awardees, but it's just not open for the general public. But again, we've funded over 450 organizations, so I think it'll be enough work. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Again, if you have any questions, you can, I think it's my email, I've been told, that's in the Zoom grant, so you can shoot me an email through Zoom grants, and we will keep that FAQ document up to date, and you can ask questions through that. The last day to ask questions is January 3rd. I know this is butting up against all the holidays, so we hope we've given you sufficient time to be able to respond to the questions. We have one last question that's come through. How will CBOs access the community or the capacity building? That will either, I think at the beginning will come through the program managers. As many of you know, we've funded some organizations that are very new and small, and there are some that need to be triaged at capacity building sort of immediately. And so we will do that sort of top tier work first, so that will very much be referred by program managers. And then as a team, we will figure out the best way to triage the other ones going forward, sort of what the workflow looks like.
And I just wanted to add one thing about Zoom grants specifically. We've had a couple of RFPs and RFQs run through Zoom grants, and if you are having any technical challenges with Zoom grants itself, they have a technical support team. So let's say you start an application and somehow didn't get saved. Megan and I wouldn't be able to support you with that. But if you contact the technical support team, they can help you through any sort of technical challenges you have. The one caveat is that if you wait to apply at the very last minute, the technical support team that they have they have a queue of people who they're supporting. So they might not be able to get to your case until after the deadline has passed. And we've had some challenges with other RFPs with that. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you're able to work on the application before 11:59 p.m. on January 6th, or that would be great. That way, in case you run into any sort of issues, the Zoom Grants technical support can provide you that help.
Any other questions before we sign off? This is very efficient.
All right.
Great. We're very excited about this. This is new work for the county, as so many other things have been for Best Start. So we're excited to get this process going, and I know the CBOs are ready to get to work. So thanks so much for your interest. Again, if you have any other questions, do it through Zoom grants, and we'll look forward to seeing all your applications on the 7th. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.